issue with casualty.
Okay.
All right, let's go ahead and start the Atherton Planning Commission for Wednesday, February 28th. Let's go ahead and start with the roll call.
Start with the roll call. Chair Lane,
Here.
present. Vice Chair Lerner,
Here.
Commissioner Tonelli,
Here.
Commissioner Bryant,
Here.
and Commissioner Polito.
Here.
There we go. And this time we also have, on the first item, we have a presentation from the HIP housing. And so we'll start with that. And this is going to be talking about renting your ADU.
Correct.
Tom?
Good evening, commissioners and town staff. My name is Laura Finucchi. I'm the Director of Programs at HIP Housing. If you're not familiar with HIP Housing, we're a nonprofit organization here in San Mateo County. And for the past 50 years, we've been helping folks find affordable housing solutions through our 3 housing programs and through over 500 units of affordable housing that we own and manage in San Mateo County. I'm here tonight to do just a brief presentation about our new collaboration with the town of Atherton. The town has always been very supportive of our home sharing program, but over the past year, we've kind of collaborated more on doing outreach in the town of Atherton to encourage homeowners with ADUs or those who are thinking about building an ADU to register with HIP Housing's home sharing program. The purpose of the collaboration is to really help the town meet its affordable housing goals as a requirement of your housing element. And renting an ADU to an individual who is low income in our community can really help to meet the town's affordable housing goals. So our home sharing program helps to match people with rooms for rent in their home, but also those who have ADUs. We have a thorough interview process for all of our home providers and our home seekers. So they're each interviewed by our staff. We conduct reference checking and background searches on our clients. So we have a very comprehensive screening process. Once clients decide they want to collaborate on home sharing, either through their ADU or through a room that they have in their home, we help them fill out a comprehensive living together agreement, which spells out the terms of the arrangement, which is involving what the rent is, what the share of cost of utilities are, and then other aspects of living on that individual's property. And then we don't stop there. We follow up with all of our clients at least every 3 months to check in with them and see how the arrangement is working. Everything is month to month, but in our home sharing program, the average length of stay is about 4.5 years. So it's really a unique housing solution for our community. Most of our home seekers are individuals who have a connection to San Mateo County already. They either live, work, or go to school here. And with the astronomical costs of housing in our community, we really need to think creatively on how we can provide affordable housing to keep our workforce local, to keep our older adults in housing as well. So we've been doing a lot of outreach in the town of Atherton. We've tabled at Earth Day event, at the Centennial celebration. So we're always open to different events that we can help to promote this program, and also doing presentations and mailings and other types of outreach. So we thank the town for their participation, and I have provided you all with the outreach flyer that we created together. And we have some in the back here as well. So our call to action is, if you know somebody here in the town who has an accessory dwelling unit, or anyone who's thinking about building an accessory dwelling unit, we would encourage you to share the information about this collaboration and have them contact HIP Housing, which our website is hiphousing.org.
Okay, good.
Great.
2 things.
Mhm.
First of all, Brittany, I don't know if you know this, or Sean, maybe, do we give these away when somebody applies for an ADU?
At this point, no, we do not, but that's a great idea, and we can look into doing that.
All right, great. And do we have a link on our town website for the link directly?
Yes, we do have the information available online, but I do like that extra touch point of either when we provide an approval letter or any sort of information about an ADU application, providing this as additional feedback and information. One thing that we do really that we are on top of is getting survey information relative to the income levels. This is just adding an extra step to that.
Good. Also, this applies to JDUs also too,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
All right. We might want to highlight that too as part of the application process. Because the JDU might be something that people are looking into. Okay, any other questions?
Have you placed anybody yet?
Not yet.
all right.
But as an example, we are also working with the town of Hillsborough on a similar collaboration. We worked with them a couple of years ago. And as a result of that collaboration, we did have we actually had 2 matches. So, and one of them is still going on. It's with a homeowner in Hillsborough who has a 2-bedroom ADU. And they have a local teacher who works in the town of Hillsborough who's been residing in the ADU. So we know sometimes that outreach efforts take time and so we're hopeful that we'll get some matches going on soon.
All right, good.
Great.
And thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for working on it too. Just as an aside on that one, we might want to think about the idea of, there's resources in town. We might be able to come up with some kind of separate fund as an idea of almost like a tuition reimbursement type program, like $1,000 a month or something, going to somebody who puts up their ADU through them, something like that. I don't know if you can do that. It wouldn't be through the city, it'd be through a fund of some type. So just an idea that again, getting this started is harder than getting it going and then keeping it going. Like you said, 4.5 years, everybody realizes that it works. All right, thank you. All right, with that, then we'll go for the public comments, and what we do with the public comment section is to open it up for items that aren't on the agenda. Sometimes people come back with, hey, did you know that this happened as a result of this? Or did you know that this needed to be looked into? Or a few years ago, I learned a lot about chickens from this opening here. So we open up the public comment section for items that aren't on the agenda. So I'll go ahead and open up the public comment. And the rush of people to the microphone is pretty thin tonight. Anyone online? Apparently not, that wants to speak. So I'm going to open and close the public comment section on the on public comments, and then we'll go to the approval of minutes. And this is the minutes from January 24th. I didn't see anything in there that I saw that wasn't correct. So did you see anything?
No, but kudos to whoever did the
Yeah.
transcription because I mean, it's
Yeah.
a complicated conversation and they did a nice job.
That's what I
Brilliant.
thought. That's what I said that as I walked in.
I had
Yeah.
one correction, and just because it was a comment that I made, under 6, the second paragraph at the end of the meeting, simply, it wasn't a 50-year-old resident, Jim Massey, who passed away. He was a 50-year-long resident.
Okay.
So it wasn't his age, it was how long he'd been here since 1974.
All right.
Just wanted to make that correction. Thank you.
That's good. Good catch. All right, anything else? I need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion. Second?
Second.
All right. And Janelle on that to second. All right, so I'm gonna do a voice on this one. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None.
Abstain.
One abstain. Thank you. Yes, you were out on that one. All right, very good. And then the next section of the agenda is the public hearings, and we conduct these the same way on all the items. We'll go ahead and start each item with an overview from staff. Then the commission will ask questions of staff on that presentation. Then we'll open public comment, starting with the applicant, and then anyone who wants to speak on the item after that. And we'll close the public comment and bring it back to the commission for discussion and action as appropriate. We'll do that every time. If anybody comes in later and you hear me do this again, it's because I want to make sure everybody is on the same page in terms of what the process is. I want everybody to be included who wants to be included. So with that, we'll start with a request for a variance on a 22-foot high kinetic sculpture exceeding the maximum structure height at 390 Stevick Drive.
So Chair Lane, this town planner, Brittany Bendix, I just want to jump in really quickly. for a couple points. First, I want to introduce you to Cristobal Soria Mendoza,
Yeah.
who is one of our associate planners at M Group. This is the first time that I believe you'll see her presenting to you. And she's been working on this variance. The other item that I wanted to remind you of relative to this variance specifically is that because it's artwork, it's really important that when you address any of the findings that you keep it to the objective nature of the code and not comment on the subjectivity of the artwork itself. That gets into First Amendment rights territory where we don't want to go. So you need to keep your rationale for whatever decision or recommendation you want to make specific to the size, the scale, the placement, those type of objective criteria of the structure itself.
Yep.
For that, oh, go ahead.
So I had actually intended to not talk about the artwork of the kinetic sculpture, but I was going to allude to another artwork piece. Is that allowed?
I would recommend that you frame it in terms of its placement, visibility.
Okay. I'll handle visible.
Those qualities of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they go back, it goes back to what our purview is, which is about the positioning and impact on, in terms of height, things like that.
So if I go down the wrong path, you'll tell me.
I will let you know. Because it does, whatever decision is made here tonight does inform a precedent.
Right.
And so we want to be careful that whatever precedent is set or considered isn't subjective in nature and is in any way or form limiting freedom of expression.
Right. Okay.
So I'll
Okay.
turn it over to Cristobal.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Good.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Cristobal Soria Mendoza, Associate Planner. The project here tonight is a variance request to permit the installation of a 21-foot tall kinetic sculpture that would measure at 22 feet and 1 inch from the natural grade in the front side yard area of 390 Stevick Drive. And let me know if this is too loud. Thank you. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission deny the variance request for the reasons outlined in the staff report and in the following slides. The property at 390 Stevick Drive is a 1.06 acre lot located in the residential R1A zoning district and south of Alameda de las Pulgas. The lot shape is generally square with a width of 210 feet and a lot depth that ranges from approximately 207 feet to 263.5 feet. The front property line varies in length as it follows the curve of Stevick Drive and the adjacent property line of 394 Stevick Drive. It is a hillside lot that slopes upward from Stevick Drive and has a slope of 7.8%. This topography is consistent with the immediate vicinity and its hillside residential developments, where the elevation slopes upwards from Alameda de las Pulgas towards the Santa Cruz Mountains. Neighboring properties are of similar 1 acre size and similar development. The image you see here and in attachment 1 demonstrates the lot configuration and the proposed location of the sculpture. Table A, shown here and on page 3 of my staff report, show that the proposed sculpture meets the front, rear, and side setback criteria stated in the Municipal Code, Chapter 17.40 for accessory buildings and structures. However, the project exceeds the allowed 11-foot maximum height in both its lowest and tallest extents. This discrepancy requires a variance for approval. The submitted variance application and request letter available in attachments 2 and 3 address the required findings and raise concerns related to the subjectivity of art versus the objectivity of development standards. The applicant also expresses that there is no suitable alternative location for the sculpture and emphasizes that the artwork would be screened by existing and any further potential screening. When fully extended, the sculpture will be 8 feet and 4 3/4 of an inch wide and will cover an area of about 34 square feet, 34.13 to be exact. The width will fluctuate as the blades are in motion and will temporarily exceed the width of 8 and 4.75 inches to a maximum width of about 17 feet when in motion. At its lowest point, the sculpture will have a height of 14 feet and 4.5 inches. At its tallest point, the sculpture will reach a height of 22 feet and 1 inch as measured from the natural grade. The peak height will occur momentarily due to the kinetic nature of the sculpture. Figures 2, 3, and 4 of my staff report provide additional context for the sculpture. To grant a variance, the Planning Commission must make 4 findings contained in the Atherton Municipal Code, Chapter 17.16 for variances, and California Government Code, Section 65906. The first finding to be met states that there are special circumstances applicable to the property, including size, shape, topography, location, or surroundings, such that the strict application of this title deprives such property of privileges enjoyed by other property owners in the vicinity and under identical land use zoning district classifications. This finding is not met because there are no special circumstances attributed to the property that deprive the property of privileges enjoyed by other property owners in the vicinity and in the R1A zoning district. The second finding to be met states that granting the variance does not constitute a grant of special privileges inconsistent with the limitations upon properties in the vicinity and zone in which such property is situated. This finding is not met because the municipal code limits the height of artwork to 11 feet when located in the front setback. If located within the buildable area for accessory buildings and structures where the height limit is 15 feet, the proposed artwork would still not be permitted due to its excessive height in motion. As the town has no record of previous variances from this requirement, granting the variance may constitute a special privilege inconsistent with the limitations upon properties in the vicinity and in the R1A zone. The third finding to be met states that granting the variance will not adversely affect the interest of the public or the interest of the residents and property owners in the vicinity of the premise in question. This finding is met because the town arborist has visited the site, reviewed these project plans, and provided a short memo that you will see in attachment 4, supporting the existing screening from 399 Stevick Drive and 394 Stevick Drive. If this variance is approved, the applicant must also submit a landscape plan to be approved by the town arborist. The neighbor at 394 Stevick Drive has provided a letter of support for the proposal, and you will see that in attachment 5. Therefore, granting the variance will not adversely affect the interest of the public or residents because of the nature of the site, the location of the sculpture, and sufficient screening on all sides. The fourth and last finding to be met states that granting the variance is consistent with the objectives of the general plan and the zoning code. This finding is not met as the project doesn't comply with the height standards of the Atherton Municipal Code and does not have special circumstances applicable to finding A. The criteria under which the Planning Commission may grant a variance are contained in the Atherton Municipal Code, Chapter 17.16 for variances and governed by state law. The Planning Commission may grant a variance if it makes all 4 findings listed in the report. As previously stated, staff do not find that the proposed project meets all 4 findings required to grant a variance. Therefore, granting the variance may constitute a special privilege to this property and is not applicable to other property owners within the vicinity and the R1A district.
Anything else?
Thank you.
All
Any
right.
questions?
Yeah, there might be a couple of questions. I have one, but well, anybody else go first?
No.
I didn't, there's no front view that I saw in the packet. Is there a front view of the art somewhere?
Unless the applicant could provide a front view, it's only what we have.
I just wanted to get a view of the mass as it points towards the street is what I was looking at. All right, just wanted-
The applicant does have a video to share of the sculpture in motion, but not the viewpoint from the site.
Okay, well, that's all right. That's all I'm looking for is just, I want to get a feel for mass.
Okay.
All right,
Yeah,
anything else?
We can provide that.
All right, then I'll go ahead and open up the public comment section. We'll start with the applicant or the representative. You're up. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. Very much appreciate the opportunity to present in front of the Planning Commission. And I want to thank Christabel for all of her help in putting this together. She's really been great to work with. And in general, Atherton,
Just
my
go
name
ahead
is Bob Muglia.
There you go.
My name is Bob Muglia. I'm the property owner.
All right, good.
In general, Atherton has been an incredibly good city to work with. This has been a challenging project for us to do. There was a lot of remediation work that was necessary on this house in Atherton. All of the Planning Commission, the work has been great. We're here, my team with me to answer any questions. I have Lisa Gimme, who's our landscape architect, Sean Griffin, who's our contractor, Paul Anderson, our construction manager, and Tristan Warren, our architect, are all here if there are any questions that I can answer for them. When Lisa designed, the original site was designed, it was originally designed with the idea that this point would be a focal point for when you drive in. It is quite hidden from the front. To your question, Eric, you really can't see it. I was just
Right.
looking this afternoon at the site, and we have a pole that is the height of it.
Right.
And while there is some visibility to it, if you look for it, it's really hidden through trees.
Yeah.
And in fact, our neighbor at 394, their driveway goes up there. And so the only place they can really see it is while they're driving up that driveway and from the top of from their upper story. And I'll show you some pictures on
Right.
that as well.
And I did go to the site, so I did see those.
Okay,
elements.
great. Thank you. It's in a secluded location. And we focused on screening. We've just added some additional large trees to help screen it, particularly for 394. And of course, if there's any additional screening, we're very open to that. It might make sense at this point to show a short video of the sculpture. This is not on this site, obviously. This is the sculptor had built this sculpture for a different site when we saw it originally. And this is a short video that just shows you, gives you an idea of the sculpture. So you get an idea how it moves, and it is designed to be silent and yet move with the wind. And so while it is, of course, taller than the variance, it's a relatively light structure as well.
So the wind is what's actually moving it, not a motor?
There are no motors. It's all wind. So if there's no wind, it won't move. But my understanding is that it does move even slightly in slight breezes. Okay.
All right.
We fell in love with the sculpture and the idea for the site, and we had talked with our architects about it and moved forward with the sculpture and commissioned it. His name is Jeffrey Lautenbeck. He's a California-based kinetic sculptor. We have commissioned the sculpture and it has been completed. We were unaware of the height restriction until we filed the documents into the planning process. And that's when we discovered that the height restriction was there. So with that, at that point, we really wanted to make sure we went through this process properly. We have, talked to our neighbor at 394 Stebic. His name's Steve Kleinman. Both Paul Anderson and I have been in communication with him. And as I said, he's fine with it, although he has requested that he wants to make sure that it's silent. And of course, I share that very much. I care a lot about that. Now, his site, and you can see this in this picture here, the house on the left is at least from my vantage on the left, is his house. And that line is essentially the height line associated with it. In the spot in the middle.
The bottom of the picture
Yeah.
is from the cul-de-sac, is the cul-de-sac. right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's right. And and in the middle where it's sort of is today brown is roughly where the sculpture would go. If you want to go to the next picture. This gives you an idea of the elevation of the sculpture relative to the neighbor. And so, as I said, the only place on his property, because of the shielding he has, down near his garage, the only place on the property he can see it from his second story window. And he'd really just, we think he'd just see the top of the sculpture at this point.
And that's only when it's fully extended.
And that's only when it's fully extended, that's correct. And that is the only neighbor that can see it. And like I said, it's, we're at the end of the cul-de-sac and it's pretty much invisible. There's no, we're right now in the winter time. So I'm sure when the spring growth comes back, it'll become even more difficult to see. But right now I would say, well, I wouldn't say you couldn't see it. It's very, very, very well screened currently. So I guess with that, that's basically all I had. So with that, we'd ask that you approve this. We know it's a variance and it is, it's something different. But we think this is a beautiful sculpture and it would go very nicely here. And we have already purchased it. So we would love to continue with the project if that could be acceptable. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions or do anything we can to help.
So when you're looking directly at it, what I was looking for was this 8-foot width, the thing that comes up, where is the 8-foot width? Is at
It's
the
just
bottom?
the movement, it's the movement of it around as it turns. The various blades could move up
so
to 8 feet.
It not only moves like this, but it also moves like
It
that.
mostly moves like this. It actually, but the things are at different orientations. So the orientations all
Got it.
change.
So it actually is sitting on a spindle of some kind on the bottom.
Exactly.
All right.
And we've laid out a pathway around it so that it has plenty of clearance.
But when I first saw the plan, it looked like it just opened like this, but it's
No,
actually spinning.
That's why the video is helpful because you
Yeah.
see if you watch it over time that it moves in pretty much every direction.
Okay, all right. All right, any other questions?
The blades are metal, is that correct?
Yes, they are made of what?
Okay, and any others that have been installed anywhere, have they been around for a long time? Is there
There are ones that are installed. I don't know the exact length of time of how long they've been there, but they have been installed. This is not the first one of these that the sculptor has done.
So where I'm getting at is as they age and it's not motorized, so that it's always going to be moving whenever there's wind. Then the metal starts to break down at all. Does that start creating noise? Is there any noise associated with an aging sculpture?
Wait until he comes, so if you're gonna speak, I need you to come up. Another member of the. of applicant
Kristen, I'm
staff.
the architect, and we're working with the sculptor about a maintenance plan. Obviously, he's the one who is going to set forth, he's done these things. He's going to provide us with a plan. We've asked for that, using that plan to make sure we properly maintain this for, function, keep it silent, all of the above things that would be important to my clients and also to the neighbors.
Yeah, I got this vision of the Tin Man coming out.
We wouldn't want that. We wouldn't, that's not what we want. One of the things that's so beautiful about the sculpture is that it is silent in the wind and
Yeah.
we would want to keep it that way.
So when the wind dies down and there's no wind, does gravity put it back into a same position
I
or
don't
does it
think
just
so.
stop where it
I
is?
Actually, I'm not sure about the answer to that question, Paul, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it goes back to its original state. I think it'll stay in wherever position it was.
Yeah, that's what I was figuring, but I thought maybe there was a gravity thing where we just kind of fold into whatever original position it starts in.
Yeah.
Think it changes. I think that the movement, it's the center of
It'll
gravity.
just stop.
Excuse me, can you,
Yeah,
please
if you're gonna-
speak directly
Yeah,
into the mic?
I need you to introduce
so that it
yourself,
can-
yeah.
What Paul
Thought
just
he's
said
gonna
is
have an
that
answer.
is the center of gravity is low,
Mhm.
but I think it would just stop. Is that correct? I think the net of it would be if the wind, it will stop in whatever position it is in. So that position that you see, it'll almost never look like that.
I got you. Yeah, I'm just trying to visualize it over, not only over time, but in stages.
Right.
As it moves. Thank
All
you.
right, any other questions?
I have a comment or
Yeah.
a question, sort of, yeah, I'm assuming by the lack of any neighbors objecting here that everyone is pretty much in compliance in the neighborhood, or do you have some people who wish they were here to object?
Well, as far as we know, made sure everyone was aware of this.
Yeah,
and-
that's what
and
I'm
Tried to
assuming.
make sure that there
Okay.
were no issues.
Thank you.
And in particular, like I said, the only neighbor who really has any impact is 394, the only one who really could see it. Other than that,
Yeah.
because we're at the end of the cul-de-sac and tucked back,
Yeah,
and this is,
Good.
as I say, hidden, it's really gonna have minimal impact.
okay, thank
All
you.
right, any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else here to speak on this item? I think your rates are higher if you speak. No, just kidding, just kidding, just kidding. Just an idea. All right, all right, I don't see anybody online that is ready to speak on this item, so I'm gonna go ahead and close the public comment section, bring it back for discussion and action as appropriate, with the commission. Anybody starting on this one? Bob, you want to start?
I'll start.
Let's go with Bob. Go ahead.
Right ahead. I think it's a great sculpture. I'm very familiar with the kinetic sculptures.
Commissioner Bryant, can I remind you not to talk about
Oh,
the
don't say anything.
aesthetic
Okay.
nature of the sculpture?
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, what I want to talk about is the third condition. I actually disagree with the staff's conclusion that it meets that condition. I went out to the site and just parked in the cul-de-sac, and I can see the top 3 or 4 feet of that pole. And I don't agree that, I mean, maybe those trees fill out, you know, as the arborist talks about, but right now they're definitely not. And so my concern is that based upon my past history in dealing with sculpture, someone could, another applicant in a different situation, if they did the exact same thing, neighbors are going to complain. And so I think we have to be very careful about the precedent.
Bob?
Yeah, I visited the site. It's pretty well screened in the nature of the design. I really can't say that it would be intrusive. I don't think that's really the issue. You answered my what to me was the most obvious question, is why you're pursuing this variance, and it's because you've already commissioned the sculpture. I can seriously understand that. But I think that to approve this kind of exception would could give us a lot of problems down the road. So I would have a lot of trouble supporting it.
Along with Tom and Bob, my problem also is precedent related, and you know, not only just for artwork, but I'm wondering how, if we set a precedent here with a structure, how it applies to other structures down the road, even non-art, just a structure and a height variance of that degree, I think would really open up a can of worms. And I think it's a very, very dangerous precedent to set.
No,
Okay.
I don't feel the same way, but I'll just stay quiet.
Well, so here's my thinking. A couple of these reasons for not being met, I could see a way around, but I can't see a way around all 4 of them. So for example, on the variance of there was a discussion about being the first time that this would be approved. You could say that it sets a precedence, but it wouldn't be against anything that was previously done. So from that standpoint, I feel like that's plausible to say, well, that was borderline and we can make a decision to do that. But I couldn't get around the height issue. The height issue is the key thing for me. Everything about the site, you're not going to be able to see it from most, except for the very top setting. But it is going to be a top setting type thing, and it's going to be moving. So if it were not moving, it would not be as obvious. But because it's moving most of the time, it's actually going to be sitting up there saying, hi, I'm here. So the pole we see right now, you can just barely see. But that will not be the case for the sculpture. So then I can't get around the height. The height for me is the real issue. It's not anything to do with the art form of it, and it's not anything to do with the location of it, for sure, because it complies on that step. But just the overall height and being able to not be able to get rid of that height in general. Now, the trees will grow and all this other stuff, but not only do we have to approve based on this owner, but if this owner were to sell and somebody would say, hey, you know what, I don't like those trees, I'll knock them down a little bit. Then all of a sudden the visibility changes. So the artwork is stable, but the greenery and the landscape is not. So because of that, I think I would be saying that it just doesn't comply. And I can't meet all 4 criteria. So with that, I mean, I wouldn't mind it being there, I don't think, but I think the maintenance will be an issue.
It's
From
a precedent.
yeah, from a squeak standpoint, but from the height standpoint, I think it's an issue. So with that, I'm ready for a motion from someone.
Chair Lane, Town Planner Brittany Bendix, just before you go ahead and make your motions. I'm hearing, I think from at least Commissioner Bryant and Chair Lane, that there may be a disagreement with staff's finding for finding number C, which was relative to the public impact or the public perception, where staff made the argument that that finding was met. And Chair Bryant mentioned that he disagreed with that finding. So when you craft your motion, if you as a collective body or you as the motion maker want to change that finding as it's stated currently in the staff report and in the variance certificate, it would be helpful to flesh that out.
I'm okay with C. It was B, I was up in the air on in terms
Okay.
of, if I were looking to approve, I'd be really drilling down that a little bit more on B, but I'm fine with C, from the view I have of it. So,
So my issue is that C seems to represent that the sculpture is fully shielded. And that's certainly not what I observed when I was out there. I mean, you can see the top three or 4 feet of that pole.
yeah,
From-
so
from-
from that standpoint, yeah.
Right.
because of the
And so that's
visibility.
my issue with C is,
So right now, staff's findings were that the finding was met and your concern is that it shouldn't have been considered as met. So as the commission asserts these findings as their own, I just want to present that as an opportunity that you can change that to a negative if that's what you'd like to do.
Okay, all right, I could go either way on that, but I understand. That, I guess that falls into my category about visibility from the height perspective.
Right.
Yes. Okay, well, I can see not met on C. That, I can see that. So however the motioner wants to make the motion. Bob?
Yes, I move the planning commission deny the variance at 390 Stevic Drive to install a sculpture with a height of 22 feet 1 inches within the required front yard setback, as all 4 of the required findings cannot be met for the reasons enumerated in the staff report.
All right, motion second.
no,
All 4 cannot be met.
I want to amend it.
Okay, well, let's,
When do we do that?
well, well, say what you want to do and see if he will modify his motion.
Well, it's back to Brittany's point is we should amend the motion to the fact that we're finding.
He
on
just
C-
said that.
All
He just
4.
said that. He said all 4 does not meet. He said his motion.
That's satisfied.
He did say that all 4 cannot be made.
Right.
And then he indicated as enumerated in the staff report.
Oh.
So we would have to amend the staff report to,
Okay.
or not the staff report, but the certificate and the findings to reconcile that. But that can be
Right.
included under that motion.
Okay.
All right, good. I heard the first half of it, assuming that, but yeah, good point. All right, motion moved. So is there a second then?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
All right.
Opposed? Abstain? All right, 5-0. All right, so not this time. Sorry about that. All right, thank you. Thank you for coming.
Sorry.
Thank you for working with us all the way. All right, item 4B is review the 2023 general plan implementation and the 6th cycle housing element annual report. So is there anything there that are you doing this one, Brittany?
Yes, Brittany Bendix, Town Planner, here to present to you on the annual progress report for the 2023 to 2031 housing element. I do not believe that the Planning Commission has previously seen this report for prior years. And in fact, last year it did go to city council. It has to go to city council for recommendation to HCD or the Housing and Community Development Department of the state. But given the discussions that we're having relative to the regional housing needs allocation, updates to the housing element, the needs to get more EDUs constructed and rented, as we heard a presentation on earlier tonight. I wanted to start sharing this information with the Planning Commission so that you could be familiar with the level of documentation that staff prepares to send to HCD, then goes into this massive data table that the state uses to make sure that all of the housing needs that they're requiring of local jurisdictions are being met. So this is just a snapshot of what that looks like. This, as you'll see, I only included table A, A2, B, and D in this staff report, but the tables listed here in the staff report and are required by HCD go through table K. And that gives you the full breadth of documentation that jurisdictions that have a lot more diversity of housing stock than we do would be submitting information on. The other thing that I want to point out is that there's certainly a number of blank cells in the tables that are in front of you. And that reflects a lot of information that is either not available because we don't have requirements for affordability on single-family homes. We're just potentially getting into that relative to ADUs. And so for the most part, the only way that we have to capture affordability information when we report it to the state is through self-reported surveys that we ask applicants to participate in every time they submit an application for an ADU, whenever they get a final certificate of occupancy for that ADU. And it takes a lot of time and effort by my staff to follow up with them at each step to try and get that affordability data. And ultimately, what you end up seeing is the summary on table B, which gives you a sense of where we're at in meeting our regional housing needs allocation goals. And so that's broken up by the income level requirements and by years, because we'll be reporting on this. It's due April 1st every year to capture the production of housing units the year prior. So right now, the report that we'll be submitting on April 1st captures all of the units produced in 2023. The other kind of key element to keep in mind here is that, yes, we are in the midst of updating our housing element program. That's yet to come before you. I'll give you an update on that when we get to staff report updates. But any changes that we're talking about making in that program aren't reflected here. This documentation only reflects what's actually the programs that were approved January 31st, 2023, which is our currently adopted housing element that's self-certified, not certified by the state. So with that, I'll turn it over for any questions.
Yeah, so I had a question about, I'm looking at table B.
Yes.
So, I'm not quite understanding how we're against our goal.
Sure.
So that's what I'm I'm very interested to know how, yeah, that's the allocation. Is that our goal? I thought that was what was the total.
Goals are on the left side.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's the goal for this category.
All right. So that, and then what is that column for then? That's how many?
It's the total remaining. So let me just kind of give a general, walk everybody through table B
Right.
for the benefit of the public here and then anybody that's following online. We're looking at table B, which is frankly the easiest to read table that I provided you.
Right.
Everything else is coming from our permit tracking software and is really kind of specific to where projects are in the pipeline. Have they been submitted? Have they been issued permits? Have the permits been completed and then occupied? So what this counts is permits that are completed.
Mhm.
This only, out of all of everything in table A and table 2, this is only capturing units that are completed. It's not looking at the number of permits that have been submitted and applied for. That's the first thing I kind of want to set up in terms of expectations for the table. On the very far left, you have income level, and you have it broken down by very low, low, moderate, and above moderate, with a total RENA number for each one, and then total units that covers across the bottom of that. And I'll talk about extremely low income units separately. The second column next to the income categories are deed restricted and non-deed restricted. This table, as a reminder, is coming from the state. We can't change the headers or the,
The order.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
that's right.
you know, even though we don't have a deed restricted program currently, we still have to categorize, you know, information that we know on low income, moderate income based on whether or not it's deed restricted or not deed restricted. So column,
Be clear, on deed restricted, that would mean that we're approving something that says you will provide this at a low income rate.
yes,
And
and
that
that
would
is
be-
recorded on the property
Right.
for a specific amount of time.
Great.
Column 1 then goes into the specific RENA allocation by income level. A little complicated because it's not technically column 1, column 3, but it's labeled column 1. That tells you,
What I had problem with.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
that tells you the actual number of units in each category, deed restricted or not, that the town is obligated to providing. So for example, 94 very low income units. The next column is a projection period from June 30th, 2022 through January 30th, 2023. That reflects a time period that's kind of in between housing element cycles that we get to actually count whatever was produced during that time period. And then from there, under the grouping of column 2, you have every year from 2023, 2024 through 2031. At the far right, then you get into column 3, which is total units to date, summing the sum of all years. And then, so that just basically adds up all of the units from the left to the right. And then column 4 subtracts that amount from column 1. So for very low income, we have a RENA allocation by income level for very low of 94. We've managed to produce 9, we're at 85.
So why, on the above moderate, why do those numbers mathematically compute?
$18 and $33 does not,
And
Oh, that might be a typo.
okay. Yeah.
so,
So it should be 51.
Yeah. So the other thing,
well, is that correct? Because.
it
does
should add 18 to 33 should add up for the total units. And then that should, the final column should be whatever that number is, less from 140.
No, no, I understand the math.
Would be
but the-
93.
But,
So
the-
we'll.
but the
fix that.
question, question is that column, the projection period, do we get to count that against the RENA goal?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So the other thing that we're,
So,
go
real
ahead.
quickly then, if this is coming from the state, why is it wrong?
It's the formatting of the table comes from the state.
Oh,
The data input
Data's ours.
Okay.
comes from the data collection from the planning department's permit tracking software and the building department's permit tracking software. And we have to merge those, and sometimes that's going in line by line.
okay.
We then have a third source of information, which I want to capture, is because we don't have deed restricted units. The information that we're getting on affordability relative to non-deed restricted is coming from that self-reported survey. So then we have to go through the survey responses that we've received throughout the year and match it up to the information that we're getting from the permit tracking software and capture it here.
Okay.
So this is an ongoing effort. The intent here is to expose you to what this looks like, what we're working on in order to get it to council. Looking at the 33 above moderate units for 2023, this is a really good example of how it's a work in progress. A subset of that number are ADUs that in the self-reported survey indicated that they weren't charging any rent. Now, we know that we can categorize no rent ADUs as extremely low income units. So where we have no right now, that number is actually going to change because we can shift that based on the survey responses we are getting. And that's why survey responses are really important. And if you have a friend that hasn't submitted a survey yet that did an ADU, we need that information. One of the other topics and lens to think about this data is that that's all self-reported information. If the state were ever to challenge us or audit us on how do you know that those ADUs are not or are being rented but aren't charging rent, we do not currently have a documentation process to do that. That is going to shift potentially with the ADU programs that are still going through city council, but that's one of the reasons why we're looking at that as a potential program.
Are we looking at the idea of actually changing the compliance requirements for on a ADU approval such that, like, for example, if you want approval on ADU, you will agree to reporting on an annual basis and all. And so what I'm trying to do is come up with an easy way for you or staff members to get the information without running around trying to chase people for an answer.
So the state does not allow us to make that contingent on an ADU approval. It has to
Oh.
be voluntary or it has to be tied to some sort of bonus program where
Right.
you are only getting this ADU or
Right.
this special incentive, concession, whatever from the town's development standards
Right.
because you're agreeing to do this.
Like waived fees.
Well, or like say, treat 1,000 square feet like 800 square feet in terms of requirements. So you get an extra 200 square feet for your ADU if you agree to report annually.
So over the next few years, we'll be coming back with this information. The data processing will get more uniform and we'll have progressive refinement to this data and we'll know where we're at in terms of the success of our ADU program and potentially a multifamily housing program in order to shift any numbers or address any programs that need to be changed. At this point, any changes relative to the
Yeah.
programming are going to be part
Right.
of the housing element update or part of the ADU ordinance update. Nothing is tied to this right now. It's just a reporting mechanism.
Right.
So one of the, first off, I think this is great to see this data and it's very helpful. I think one of the problems is that because it's coming from different systems that have different criteria, it actually,
The data integration.
it doesn't match up.
Right.
And so I understand that we're stuck with the table B format, but if table A is the town's format, then I would suggest we need to incorporate some of table B needs to flow from table A. And so we need to figure out how to, because right now the numbers they don't tie. And you know, and the numbers you're talking about in ADU and your report are different again. And so everyone's going to get confused with three different sets of numbers.
Frankly, so all of the tables in front of you reflect the formatting that is required by the state.
Oh,
With
this
the exception that it was so horrendously complicated that I actually tried to pull that data and then cut and paste into a new spreadsheet so we could delete cells that weren't useful, change some of the color coding that is actually required and locked in because there's no editing options other than inputting numbers.
Yeah.
So, you know, the calculation issue for above moderate, that was probably me going too fast in terms of trying to transpose from the actual Excel spreadsheet that we use and will be submitted to a summary table or something that's more easily digestible by the public so that you can understand what it is that we're actually working on.
It's also possible, depending on the source of data, that the 44 is correct and the 33 or 18 is wrong. So,
Right. Well,
sure.
and that number is going to change because there are going to be permits that get finalized before we go to city council. So it is a moving target that we
Right.
have to keep on regularly. The other thing that I've been working with Rada on, she's not here tonight, but she's helping do all of the data collection and management, is looking at process improvements we can do throughout the year so that this is less of an effort and a heavy lift at the end of every year. And taking that data from one source and plugging it into this one is a lot more streamlined and less clunky.
Are there any communities that developed so in corporate, we had this problem too. And we came up with methodologies to do it with a couple of programmers that would actually pull them together, and then we could rely on it because they were pulled together better.
Yeah, that,
Is anybody is any other city doing
Yeah,
that?
there are ways
Yeah.
you run the risk of the tail wagging the dog though,
Right.
right? Like you do want your building permit, your planning permit data to work for you in terms of operations, and you don't want
Right.
this one report, this one annual report running how you do things.
Right.
but they can dump
But-
the data into a database and.
But there
and-
is ways that we can work on cleaning it up, and we're certainly going to try and do
Yeah.
that. So it's much more streamlined in the future.
Yeah, because otherwise, people are going to nitpick about why are the numbers different
Absolutely.
and
yes.
distrust the report.
Yes.
And the other way, you're coming up with charts of these numbers rather than just, like graphs of the numbers rather than just the numbers themselves, but that will be later. But that'll be a much easier way to get the information across to the public and staff. So you can see a trend line and a dot and where you are on the trend line rather than just reading column 4, column 7.
Right. Well, and frankly, in previous housing cycles, there hasn't been a lot of attention paid to this
Yeah.
because it hasn't been as huge of a number
Right.
with as varied of income requirements to affect a town the scale of Atherton.
Right.
So this is an opportunity to get some initial feedback, to start educating you on, what it is that we're doing. And especially if we have to come and make any sort of programmatic changes or say, hey, it's been 4 years, we're not meeting this target. We really need to shift gears here and think of something creative in the next 4 so that we don't have a problem with HCD. Obviously, we're going to need to back up that data and show our work.
So on table B, on the extremely low income units, why is that number not included in the 348?
It is.
It is, it's reflected, sorry, I didn't address this because I was focusing on the upper part of the table B. Column 5, 6, and 7 are effectively a subset of the very low income category,
Okay.
where 50% of very low is required to be extremely low.
Okay, got it. And then on table A, it's not the top row, but the row that says summary row, start date, entry below. You go across and you have summaries. The numbers in that row are the totals in that row. So when we get to above moderate, the number is 82. So, that's different than over here. And so I was trying to understand where's the 82? I mean, it's all of these projects here, but.
So table A reflects everything that's in the pipeline that hasn't yet actually been able to be counted towards table B because it's not done.
Yeah, so this is the distinction between building is signed off, it's complete versus it's in plan check or something.
Right. And
Okay.
so this gives you a sense of kind of what to expect throughout 2024.
Yeah,
So there's a couple of different kinds of reports that I've been familiar with that I use frequently in my own staff work, and one was a work workflow snapshot, which shows how many's in, how many are coming, how many are approved, and what the target is. That way you can see what the pipeline is, a pipeline report, which is kind of an A, B, D type of report. So again, I know it's starting and you just gotta get your arms around the data, but this is the kind of project that a college intern can really help with. So this is like, a sign at Stanford. By the way, we're looking for somebody that does statistical work like this, that's good on Excel. And about a week and a half later, you've got an answer, and then you just tune it like that, and and all of a sudden your blood pressure drops dramatically. So just think about that, because I've done this with bigger data than you're talking about by a lot, with more tables than you're talking about a lot.
Well,
It's
and it just reminded me that Christabel's actually been going through a lot of this data, because even when M Group came on board, we weren't necessarily getting all of the ADUs tracked accurately. And so she spent a lot of time kind of weeding through that
Right,
information
right.
to even have the data that we're looking at right now and trying to sort through. So kudos to Christabel. Thank you.
If I can get my daughter's a PhD that works on this statistical crunching of numbers on big data, get her up here.
But great idea.
Go ahead, Bob.
Um, Tom's point about the discrepancies in numbers, I'm just trying to understand them a little bit. Are these occupancy permits on table B?
Yeah, so those are completed projects.
So they'd be and they'd be a subset of these other spreadsheets.
It wouldn't be a subset of the pipeline of the pending.
Well, this is not just pipeline. no.
Yeah, I know, I know, but I'm talking about the one that is just pipeline, that would was.
I mean, barring errors, in theory, it should be a subset of table A and table A2,
Yes,
Right.
okay? And it includes ADUs and single-family dwellings.
yes.
Okay,
And then if there were any multifamily housing, that would be added to
Okay.
this as well.
And so looking at table A, I didn't count them, but there looks like, maybe 24 single-family dwellings at the bottom.
20.
20. So are those all net new, or are they tear downs and rebuilds?
They're net new.
So there's 20 net new.
Yes.
That's okay, that's good, that's good, that's a good start. I mean, it needs to be 5 times that, but that's good.
So, and also to be clear, in attachment 1, table A2 is actually so wide, I didn't feel comfortable giving you all of the columns on one sheet. It's hard,
It's impossible to
it's
read.
impossible to read really printed already. But I also didn't want to err on the side of making it overly complicated by making 3 sheets. So really the first sheet of Able2 goes through the different phases of the permit review. And then the second sheet is really there to show you the type of other information that the state is asking about each project. For example, was this a streamlined project? Did it use SB 9? Did it use other state laws like SB 35, which isn't applicable here, but it could be one day? Did it use the density bonus program? Were there other units that were just demolished, to Commissioner Bryant's question, that kind of disrupt the net balance?
Would it show
you know,
lot
or-
splits?
Only in the notion of, was it a streamlined permit through SB 9?
I'm at like, not even an SB9, not lot split.
No, this report would not capture the number of SB 9 projects that we, or lot splits that we have done. It captures the number of units developed from an SB 9 lot split.
Well, and so that would also be the same answer then for non-SBU lot split. A
Yes.
5 acre split to 2.5, the extra home would show up as a new home, and that one of them would be a rebuild.
Yes.
That's the way it would show up, even though they're both new homes of a different type than that was there in the first place. See, that's why I'm trying to, sometimes this is another good example of, so if you had a 1 acre plot that you decided to split into, and we allowed it, it would show up as one existing home and one new home, even though it's two homes of a different type. So that's a nit, but we'll get to that nit later on, but it's one of those things where it doesn't, if our data doesn't reflect the reality, then the data works against our reality.
Right.
So we'll keep working on it. And I know early on, we just want to get the reports right and accurate. And as we go, let's get a more and more telling of what the story is, because I don't want the numbers to hide the story.
Right.
I want them to tell the story and not hide it. Yeah, okay. Good, this is a good start, but we're just gonna tighten it up.
One of the things that's sort of interesting is if you take just the, again, on table B, if you just take the unit count here and you just project out and say, we're going to do this the same numbers every year for the next 8 years. And I didn't include the interim period. Basically works out that we meet goal for.
Right.
Right, and that's
Moderate, yeah.
actually one of the things that HCD in their letter from April of last year challenged us on. So having this information, when we go back to HCD with a housing element
Yeah.
update and be like, look, we're already hitting the ADU pace that we said we would. You challenged us on that, but, well, and I've already had conversations with HCD where they express, oh, okay, well, we understand that you've done the math, you have the permit history to back that up. So I'm not worried about that, but I'm highlighting it in response to what you're saying is, yes, those are the type of conversations that we're already having and working with them on to resolve some of the issues that came up last spring.
Good.
That the problem's going to be low income, but.
Right.
Yeah, and that'll be a case that'll be our issue the whole rest of the way.
Yeah.
All right, unless we come up with a way to highlight rental property incentives for people who are selling or giving it to their adult parents or something, and they're not charging them per se, but if they found out that there was a benefit to charging them, or at least be on record charging them, it might help them and us. All right, cool. All right, that's good. Randy, any other questions?
Yep.
All right, so item 5 is staff reports. After that staff report, do you have another one?
Yeah, so I wanted to give you an update on the last city council meeting. That was last Wednesday. At that hearing, they discussed the ADU ordinance and they looked specifically at the I'm just going over my notes here. Looking at ADU standards for ADUs above garages and screenings, prioritizing kind of opaque screening along the property line. If the ADU is located outside what the town's development setbacks are for detached accessory structures. So effectively, if you're that 800 square foot ADU with a 4-foot setback or no front setback, you have to put in either an 8-foot tall fence or you have to have opaque landscape screening, meaning that it's really as solid as possible. And that screening conversation keeps coming up. So we'll be seeing that more, I think, as we develop the multifamily development standards. The other thing that has moved forward is the bonus ADU program. And that would be applicable, it's a voluntary program applicable to lots of 2 acres or more, where they would be able to do an additional ADU so long as it was deed restricted for a period of 10 to 15 years, depending on what the income category was.
That would be 3 ADUs on the site, 2,
It would be a 4th.
a 4th, okay.
So that's effectively past first reading. It needs to go back to the city council for a second reading. That'll happen on March 20th, assuming it gets passed on the 20th, then on April 20th, 21st, that the ADU ordinance as it's been amended would become effective.
And so just going back over that point, the council's concerned. So at the planning commission, we talked about limiting how low the windows could go or the.
That was
possibility-
incorporated.
Right. So they're concerned, so an occupant of that ADU can't look out onto a neighbor's property. So the council's concern is the neighbors don't want to look at it.
Yes.
Okay, and that's what they want to screen.
Yes, a lot of the feedback that we've heard from the public is really that they don't want to see the ADU, whether it's from the public right of way or their own property.
Yeah.
So that screening is intended to obscure as much of the ADU, especially when it's beyond the town's regular development setbacks, or if it's located above the garage, because that
Right.
was one of the angles we were taking to incentivize ADUs.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Yes. I also wanted to mention that the town adopted an update to the fee schedule, and that included fees specific for ADUs. And one of the things that they did was they reduced the fee for an ADU application if it's compliant again with the setbacks. So that's kind of an interesting development there that I wanted to make you aware of, as well as the fact that there will be an updated fee schedule. I think it's March 22nd. And then the third item that was relevant to discussions we've had here is the discussion about the TPZ standards and whether or not to align R1A to R1B or R1B to R1A. The commission recommended keeping the status quo. The council opted not to make any changes. However, they have directed staff to take a look at the heritage tree definition and look at the notion of the species that the town would prefer to preserve versus the size of the tree. There wasn't really specific direction given on what to preserve and what not to. It was really just a push toward to the town arborist as well as myself to collaborate, to take another look at that and bring it back. Based on the progress of the ADUs as well as the housing element, we probably won't come back with any changes to the heritage tree ordinance until after those two things are more solidified and moving forward. So, and then lastly, just to let you know that we are still doing what we can to get the CEQA done for the housing element. It's not ready for public consumption yet. We've gotten feedbacks from the city attorney, and so we're working on refining some areas to make sure that when we do send it out, it's clear and it's well thought through.
So the housing element still looks like September, August, same timeframe in terms of.
I wasn't thinking about it out as far as August and September. But I guess when you factor in getting comments back from HCD, yes, that is a possibility.
Okay.
You're just worried about your vacation.
No, I'm not. I'm not worried about vacation. I'm just worried about the you know,
And there haven't been any builders remedy submissions?
No,
Okay.
I have heard from a handful of owners within the town that seem to have been contacted by developers that are interested in builders remedy. So that always, reminds me to keep things moving forward
Right.
as best as I can. But, I will say that there are no property owners that I'm aware of that are really entertaining that. If anything, they're more interested in looking at ways that they can use SB9 and the ADU program.
Right. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the work. All of you. Okay, commissioners report. I don't have anything. Nothing. All right, that was easy. All right, then number 7 is always a tough one. I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
See, it's a lot longer than I thought.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, we're out of here. Thank you all.
You're not the only one that can bring gifts for holidays.